I stepped off the plane, feeling refreshed after 2 incredible weeks exploring Thailand. The temples, the food, the beaches. It had been the perfect escape from my high-stress consulting job and the endless petty drama of Willow Creek Heights. All I wanted was to sink into my own bed and sleep off the jet lag. But as my Uber pulled into my neighborhood, I noticed something strange. There was a police car parked in my driveway. My first thought was that someone had broken in while I was away. But as I approached, dragging my suitcase behind me, I saw a family standing on my porch, talking to the officers. A man, woman, and 2 children, all looking completely at home. The woman was gesturing with a set of keys, house keys. "Excuse me," I said, stepping past the police cruiser. "What's going on here? This is my house." The officers turned to me with suspicious glares. "Sir, these homeowners called us because they said someone was threatening to break into their home. Can I see some identification?" I fumbled for my passport, completely bewildered. There must be some mistake. I've lived here for 6 years. I just got back from vacation. The man on my porch looked equally confused. "We bought this house 2 weeks ago. We have all the paperwork and the deed. We moved in yesterday." My stomach dropped. "That's impossible. I never put my house up for sale." Looking past them through the window, I realized with horror that all my furniture was gone. My photos, my belongings, everything had vanished. In their place were unfamiliar couches, tables, and boxes still waiting to be unpacked. One of the officers, a stern woman with her hand hovering near her weapon, spoke firmly. "Sir, I'm going to need you to step back. These people have legal documentation showing they own this property." "This is insane," I protested, my voice rising with panic. "I have my mortgage statements, tax records, everything's on my phone. I can prove this is my house." But as I frantically scrolled through my email, I could see the officers didn't believe me. The new owners looked frightened, the children hiding behind their mother. I was being treated like a criminal on my own property, and I had no idea how this nightmare had begun. I had left everything in perfect order before my trip. My mortgage payment was on auto draft. My mail was being held at the post office, and I'd even hired a service to mow my lawn while I was gone. The only loose end had been the latest ridiculous notice from our HOA president, Eleanor Vance. Eleanor had been the bane of my existence since I moved into Willow Creek Heights. A woman in her 50s with an immaculate blonde bob and an ever-present clipboard, she patrolled the neighborhood like a military general inspecting her troops. Her latest complaint had been about the shade of my mailbox. Apparently, charcoal gray violated the community standards, which specified slate gray. I had ignored it, planning to deal with the absurdity when I returned. Eleanor had always been unreasonable, sending notices for grass half an inch too tall or threatening fines because my garbage can remain at the curb for 2 hours after collection. Once, she had even measured the distance between my holiday decorations with a ruler, claiming they were unevenly spaced. But I never imagined she could do something like this. As I stood there on my own driveway, being treated like a trespasser, a familiar white SUV pulled up to the curb. Eleanor stepped out, perfectly coiffed as always, carrying her infamous clipboard. A smug smile appeared on her face when she saw me. "Officers," she called out, strutting toward us. "I see our neighborhood intruder has returned. As I mentioned when these nice folks called me earlier, this man no longer lives here. He abandoned the property months ago, which is why the HOA had to intervene." "What?" I exploded, turning to face her. "I've been gone for 2 weeks, not months. You know that." Eleanor's eyes narrowed. "The board has documentation showing this property was vacant and abandoned, with HOA fees unpaid for 6 months. We followed all legal processes to place a lien and force a sale to recover costs. It was a complete fabrication. I had never missed a single payment." Even the officers looked skeptical at this point, but they still had to follow protocol. They suggested I contact a lawyer immediately and sort it out through proper channels. The next 48 hours were a blur of panic and frustration. I checked into a hotel and called every lawyer in town until I found one who could see me immediately. Isabella Rossi listened to my story with growing concern, her expression darkening as I explained Eleanor's history of harassment. "This sounds like fraud," she said, tapping her pen against her legal pad. "But we need to move quickly. If they've actually filed a deed transfer, we need to challenge it before the situation gets more complicated." Isabella helped me gather evidence. bank statements showing all my HOA payments, travel documentation proving I'd only been gone 2 weeks, and emails from neighbors who'd seen me actively living in my home right up until my vacation. We also requested all documents from the county clerk related to the sale of my property. What we discovered was shocking. Someone had filed paperwork claiming I had abandoned the property and owed over $15,000 in HOA fees and fines. There were forged certified letters supposedly sent to me, falsified inspection reports, and even a fabricated notice of public auction. The paper trail led directly back to Eleanor and the HOA board. Most disturbing was what we found when Isabella suggested we look into other recent sales in the neighborhood. 2 other homes had been sold through similar expedited lien processes in the past year, both while the owners were away on extended trips. One owner had been stationed overseas with the military. Another had been caring for a sick parent in another state. I'm furious. She's been targeting people who are away and can't defend themselves, I told Isabella. This isn't just harassment anymore. It's organized crime. The turning point came when we discovered Eleanor's connection to the real estate company handling these quick sales. Her brother-in-law was the broker, and they had been splitting the commissions. Even more damning was an email we uncovered through subpoena, where Eleanor discussed finding the next opportunity when she noticed I had stopped my mail delivery and booked a ride to the airport. With this evidence in hand, we approached the district attorney's office. At first, they seemed reluctant to get involved in what they viewed as a civil matter. But when Isabella presented the pattern of fraud across multiple properties, they finally took notice. This is systematic real estate fraud, Isabella argued. And it's not just MS. Vance. It's a conspiracy involving multiple members of the HOA board and real estate professionals. The investigation gained momentum when we contacted a local news station. The reporter, eager for a story about corruption in suburban America, jumped at the chance to expose Eleanor's scheme. Their investigation revealed that Eleanor had been running the HOA like her personal fiefdom for years, intimidating board members into compliance and funneling contracts to friends and family. The news segment aired on a Thursday evening. By Friday morning, my phone was ringing nonstop with calls from neighbors I'd barely spoken to before. Many had their own stories about Eleanor's abuse of power, but had been too intimidated to speak up. More significantly, a former HOA treasurer came forward with records showing Eleanor had been embezzling funds for years, using the association's accounts as her personal piggy bank. Everything changed quickly after that. The police, now taking the case seriously, obtained a warrant to search Eleanor's home and the HOA office. They found folders of information on various homeowners, including travel schedules, financial records, and what appeared to be a list of potential targets, people with valuable homes who traveled frequently. The family who had unwittingly purchased my house was devastated to learn they had been part of a scam. Fortunately, the court quickly invalidated the fraudulent sale, and the HOA's insurance policy would compensate them for their losses. I was allowed to return home, though many of my personal belongings had been sold or discarded during the fake property cleanout. In a dramatic scene that neighbors recorded on their phones, Eleanor was arrested mid-rant at an HOA meeting, where she'd been vehemently denying all allegations. The officers interrupted her mid-sentence, reading her rights as they handcuffed her in front of the entire community. Her face, usually set in a self-satisfied smirk, crumpled in shock and outrage. "This is ridiculous," she shrieked as they led her away. "I was protecting property values. These people should be thanking me." No one was thanking her when the charges were formally filed. Multiple counts of fraud, forgery, conspiracy, grand theft, and money laundering. The prosecutor announced they would be seeking maximum penalties, up to 25 years in prison and fines exceeding $1 million. Eleanor's perfectly maintained facade finally shattered during her arraignment when the judge denied bail, citing flight risk and the severity of the charges. She collapsed into sobs, mascara streaking down her face as she was led away in an orange jumpsuit, a far cry from her usual tailored pantsuits and pearl necklaces.